Hello, welcome everyone. Excited to be with you today on CarrTalk and very excited to continue our series where we focus on the latest trends and developments in e-commerce and also how Spreetail is responding to those. And very excited to have with me both Josh and Will, who both been with us before. I'll let them introduce themselves in a minute, but Josh Smith is our leader in our technology team and all of our technology infrastructure, and Will leads all of our pricing work at Spreetail for our brands. So welcome.
Appreciate it, Owen. Glad to be back on.
Yes. Hi, Will. Good to see you as well.
Hey, Owen. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, absolutely. And we're excited to see how many viewers we can get up today. I think if we're good, we can surpass 1 million viewers, which is the new bar set yesterday by Taylor Swift. So I would like to think the three of us are equivalent to that. No, it'll be fun to talk and excited to jump into pricing.
Here's my album release.
Yeah. Today we're going to talk through pricing responsiveness, agility, how to flex, how to think about that. There's a lot of topics now on pricing just because many companies are facing tariffs and environments that are coming through. And so we want to think about what does that mean in the retail environment. And of course, all of our goals as retailers and as manufacturers and as brand owners should be to mitigate and try and keep prices as low as possible, because we all know that's what drives volume. But we also want to provide value and make sure that the business is healthy. And so that's what we want to talk through today. So with that, let's go ahead and jump in. I think, Will, maybe let's start with you and think about what are some of the barriers that the brands are facing and knowing when to price change. How is retail thinking about that? What are some of the pieces that you're seeing?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Owen. I'll begin probably from an inside-out view from a brand's perspective. First and foremost, especially in this time, I think one of the very first points I would call out is knowing whether there's an inherent change in the inputs of the cost of your item. Obviously, right now, with all the conversations around tariffs, that's a point that is very pertinent in the environment. And that's something that we've spent a lot of time trying to understand, when are we starting to sell down our old inventory and we're starting to move into tariff impacted inventory. And this may not necessarily could be increasing costs, freight, whatever it may be, but having a good understanding of when your costs are adjusting and therefore understanding what your goals are from a profitability perspective is first and foremost. One of the decision points that you want to think through is just what's happening to my inputs. The second is with Amazon, obviously there's a high proliferation of competitors and substitutes. So understanding what are they doing from a pricing perspective. And I think we have an example here with one of our marquee brands, All Seasons Power. They sell a pressure washer is one of the key items. Within that category of items, there are a lot of competitors that range from a wide range of prices. And I don't know if Kaylee's going to flash this up on the screen, but we can kind of walk through that on our side. Overall, I want to be able to understand from a competition, how are they navigating this? And therefore, we may need to react to that. Are they adjusting their prices up, down? Yes, thank you for this. On the from $88 all the way out to $146. How are you in relative comparison to these items in terms of your features and specs? But overall, what are they doing in terms of pricing? Because you want to take that into consideration, as that will also impact your bestseller rank and how you kind of navigate the listing. So understand what your competition's doing. It can be challenging if you're a brand with a ton of items, a wide portfolio of items, getting down to this specific.
Hey, I think Josh, can you hear me okay there?
Yeah, I can hear you good on.
I think we're having a little bit of technical difficulty with Will there, so we'll let him get that resolved. But in the meantime, let's maybe jump into some different sections of our conversation. And maybe let's take it around price pulse. This is something that Spreetail's tool that we've had and offered for a while in response to the pricing environment and what we're seeing. Would love it if you would jump in to just give us the intro and detail on price pulse.
Yeah, and then maybe if we can jump back it'll be help kind of carry the conversation a little bit on why we started kind of thinking about a technology solution to begin with. The team did a lot of investigation across a lot of different tools. There's a lot of very strong market recognizable names that do pricing engines. Right. And so we started scanning those, like, why build if you can leverage it, right? And if it works, do it. And we started running a lot of tests, and come to find out most of the providers in the market really focus on optimizing buy box, and they really just stay very hyper focused on just winning the buy box. And they leverage some of the information from Amazon and other marketplaces around, hey, if someone's competing on the same item, or ASIN as Amazon calls it, right? There's certain factors that drive who's going to win that buy box. And most of these pricing engines, what they do is they try to guess based on your seller rank, and they try to guess other people's seller rank that are competing, and determine what does price need to be at in order for you to win, with all the other factors that go into the buy box, inventory availability, your IPI score, your time of delivery. All those things go into what a buy box, like who wins the buy box. And a lot of those pricing engines stay focused on the buy box part of the ecosystem. But we know that price has a much bigger influence across how people shop and buy than just determining, at the point of someone's already decided to buy a product, then who should get credit for that product, whether it's us or a competitor that's selling on the same item, right? And so none of the engines really looked at that. And so we took a step back and said, hey, what would be the ideal engine for us to maximize for our brands their market share that doesn't just consider the single ASIN, but what about that competitor digital shelf that Will was showing earlier, the image of all those comparable items. And so we started going down the journey of building a capability that not just looked more broadly across the market, but also considered the impacts of inventory availability and inbound inventory that's expected to land, and the velocity at which we're selling. Because if you sell out too quickly before you can backload the item, that also drops your search rank on that item. It will drop your ability to win the buy box long term. You're having to build that credit back in the system if you ever stock out, right? So those combination of challenges really led us to just say, hey, we need to build something ourselves that can accommodate for the complexities of not just buy box optimization, but long-term buy box ownership and market share growth.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And I think especially, Josh, understanding that there are gaps, right, in how we're able to assess data, review the market, respond. But now with a better system and infrastructure, able to overcome that. And that's super, super helpful in terms of the background overall. Maybe speak more into detail around, maybe a little bit of how the tooling works, some of the functionality, some of the next steps of the iterations of it as folks try to assess how to either build that themselves or how to, find a partner that has that kind of sophistication.
Yeah. Well, it's a complex ecosystem. I mean, getting into how we've kind of pulled it together, right? You think about what data Amazon provides you through their APIs. There's actually pricing signals that you can get from between 5 to 8 different Amazon APIs. And so in order to get that comprehensive view just for the buy box component, you need to actually connect multiple APIs in the back end together to get them and harmonize that data in a singular way at a speed at which you can be making these determinations based on changes on your competitive ASINs, right? If you extend that to say, hey, we don't want to just care about the buy box, we want to care about like the digital shelf was what we call it, right? And that's, who else, when someone searches for a key term like a pressure washer, right? who else is in that search result with you? And that's your digital shelf, right? And so in order to get that awareness, you have to go through a completely different set of data collection mechanisms and APIs to get that round of visibility, and then start harmonizing that information together. And that's just the foundation. Once you start actually having that information, then you have to start having the statistics and the experience to start layering in when do things matter and when do they not. And how do you get to a point where you're determining across multiple price points what the potential is? And then how do you start discounting that and saying, well, this isn't the right strategy, this is the right strategy, this is the right strategy because of XYZ reasons? And doing that almost in real time, consistently, based on these different changes in the marketplace, inventory availability across your kind of items and competitor items, all those things happening synchronous at the same time is a pretty complex system. That is actually the reason pricing engines don't do that in the market, and they focus solely on the buy box, is because all of that level of awareness is very complex to plug into, every brand system, and then all those other things, and collecting that data for a singular brand, which is again why we had to build it ourselves. But it is a comprehensive kind of ecosystem and focus that drives a lot of value for us. So it's worth it for us, and to drive that for our brands, because we're really focused on helping them drive their market share in a more long-term relationship versus just winning today's sale. It's all about how do we actually grow that long-term impact, and
Right.
having a system that can help that and drive that from a pricing perspective.
Well, and if you're a brand that has 3, 4, 5, 10 SKUs, you probably could manually do a lot of this yourself, right? If you're willing to just bleed in the hours every day and study everything and be constantly tweaking. But the problem is, you just can't scale that, right? And unless you have to hire 1 million people and obviously have all this hygiene around what everyone's looking at, and they're all well trained. Here, there's a tool that enables brands to do this at scale and be selling hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue with an infrastructure that's scaled and built, and is going to do it as if there was one person sitting there maniacally focused on those 10 or 20 SKUs every day. So yeah, it's powerful to see. That's great. And then, I guess I know that we've talked through a few brands. We talked through one of our partners, All Seasons Power, today. But any type of performance or impact type things you'd want to share in addition to what you've already shared?
Yeah, I mean, if we think about kind of our pricing engine, right, and what impact it has for us, right, and for our brands, we kind of attribute it to, I won't get into specifics, but multi-millions, of incremental sales, every month, just driven by, how our pricing engine is working and driving kind of those changes in the market, right? But there's very tactical, like, recent examples of like what makes our pricing engine different and what makes Price Pulse different. For instance, during the most recent Prime Day event, going back to the same brand partner of ours, they have these pressure washers, right? And the Price Pulse identified competitor changes on on that pressure washer item, that they were, basically opting into Prime Day promotion, right? And their Prime Day promotion was X amount. And if we had kept our price at the certain level, we were expecting to lose market share, especially during critical promotional event, right? And so Price Pulse went and made the change, and actually made the change specifically so it wasn't cratering prices, but it was enough to balance out that traffic and that market share towards our item versus maybe a competitor item of a similar pressure washer, enough to take advantage and draft off of it, and then expand kind of our velocity of that item during the key event, which otherwise, if we hadn't been monitoring beyond just the buy box, we wouldn't have been able to identify that and react appropriately.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really good to point out, and we all think about this, right? As brand owners, as manufacturers, we work hard, we bleed over our products and our brands, but then you kind of do all that work, and you get right to the 1 yard line. But if you have bad price execution, you'll never get into the end zone ever. Right? And so that's where pricing power can actually mean the difference of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% sales increase. Because you've kind of done all the good work. You have a great product, you have great content, you have great ad engine, you have great shipping, you have great fulfillment. But if you drop it on pricing, you're kind of dropping that final bit of execution.
No, that's exactly right. And if we think about going to where again, the key differentiated items of like price pulse for us and what we feel like is important compared to maybe the broader market. It's all around that inventory awareness, right? The market awareness of what is happening across other ASINs of similar context, right? And then what is the expected basically inventory over time, and how do you make sure that you're keeping at a certain level in rank and buy box ownership, that you could balance velocity just to make sure that you're not having to stock out, you crater your score on
Right.
Amazon, and then have to bring it back up.
Right. Well, and this tool is also, we've done a lot of recent development on it, but we've also developed it over years and years, right? Spreetail's almost 20 years. The first seller to integrate with Amazon on Prime, and one of the largest. And we've integrated and built this tool over years of knowledge and insights of how to navigate different environments and with different SKUs in the durable goods space. So super exciting. And I think maybe help us understand a little bit. I think there's some comparisons on how this tool differs to others that are out in the market as well.
Yeah. So one, obviously being across marketplaces is important, right?
Right.
A lot of pricing tools, they will, because every marketplace is a little bit different. And if you're a software product, you're trying to penetrate a market, right? And so you're trying to serve the masses. You're not trying to like serve the best, because there's only a few of the best, and so the market for the best is actually really small. And so whenever we think about software and ever lose it, most of them are a singular marketplace to penetrate the market of that marketplace. Whereas we need to think more broadly. We have to consider our inventory sell through across marketplaces to determine for any one channel what is that optimal price, and then making sure that we're not or the best way to put it, we're balancing kind of the availability of inventory across the marketplaces, and not adjusting prices too much on one versus the other, because there's kind of a standard that's set in the market that there's some places that you need similar prices across all marketplaces, right? So that ability to monitor but also adjust appropriately is there. Knowing seasonality and promotions is a big one. A lot of the pricers out there don't do dynamic price elasticities, seasonality measurements, impact of events, right? And
Or
so
it's a different layered module that you need to subscribe to.
yeah, all the little add-ons that you got to have and bake it in, and sometimes it does consider it, sometimes it doesn't.
Right.
So having that all integrated is just helpful for us. And then going back to like, how do we consider inventory as a key component? Working with our brands to make sure that they are maximizing kind of the buyback seller score, as well as kind of seller rank on these items, as we're kind of managing the flow of inventory all the way through to their manufacturer.
Sure.
Right. And so it's a big key part of it as well.
And this is not a tool we sell or make available for brands to use on their own. That if they're going to use it, it's inside the ecosystem of our team. It's Spreetail using it on their behalf, essentially, correct?
Yeah, no, that's a great call out. It's available and embedded in how it's our lifeblood, like in how we operate every partnership. But it's not something that we productize or try to sell in the market, because we think that our brand partners deserve to have the most competitive solution out there, and we're not trying to monetize that in some other way, right? And spread that knowledge elsewhere. We really want it for our partners ourselves, and then when they work with us to have that, so that way we keep that a competitive advantage as much as possible.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think we're settled in down a bit there. Maybe we want to go back and hit on some awareness pieces. I think that we were talking through some cost and other elements, but if would you want to walk us through some of just the different marketplace awareness? Spreetail is multi-channel, selling on 20 different channels, and how we kind of think about that with our pricing strategy and how we proliferate prices.
Yeah, Josh. Sorry, Owen. I think I'm still having a little bit of difficulty here.
A little bit of lag. That's okay. That's okay. Maybe we'll. I think that's okay, Will. I think we had some good dialogue and content prepared, and Will is one of our brightest and most experienced team members in the space. So a little bummed that we won't have you with him today, but we'll get that settled for next time. But with that, I think that for me, a lot of the criticality of pricing and why we're talking about pricing today, when we've already talked about it a little bit on CarrTalk, is just with the tariff environment. And so I'll just talk really broadly about that, and then Josh, love, maybe you and I can have some quick dialogue on it. But essentially, so Spreetail tracks, it's a proprietary system that we built, and without sharing all of our proprietary info, I will just say it's in the millions of ASINs that we track across Amazon in the durable goods inventory space. And we track pricing, and we track inventory, and we track a whole number of elements about the feature sets of those goods. And in doing so, we begin to assess how the market's moving in price. And we've been able to share with various partners, our own partners, as well as some publications, including Schwab and others, that we saw the durable goods space start the year in January at about 4% down in price year over year, meaning that across the blend of goods weighted by revenue, in general, folks were priced more aggressively to start 2025 than they were 2024. And there's many factors for that. It could be the amount of inventory that had been front loaded in, or maybe folks had, or maybe different seasonal factors, or different aggressive pricing factors and trends that have happened in the space. The point is, we fully expected tariffs, once those come into bear, to start to raise those prices demonstrably. That has happened. Prices are up now year over year to the tune of a couple percent in the durable goods space. So that's a pretty big jump, right? From down 4 to up a couple percent. And really what we're seeing is almost every week it's rising another 30, 40, 50 bips. And it's happening as we expected. It's taking longer than we expected. So we thought this was all going to happen much faster. But what we have realized since then is that a lot more retailers and brands front-loaded inventory ahead of the tariffs than we had anticipated. And so folks did have a lot of inventory that they purchased in Q1 or Q4, and they're kind of sitting on it at a non-tariffed environment, and now they're selling that. But as they sell that through, and we're starting to see that happen, then when they replenish and they have to pay the additional tariff, that's when they have to start raising up price. And so we are starting to see that happen. And we do expect many retailers, from Home Depot to Amazon, Walmart, and others, are going to have to keep raising price over the next 6 to 9 months to navigate that tariff environment. Obviously, each of their goals, and Spreetail's goals and our brand's goal, is to mitigate as much of that as possible. Everyone knows that if we raise price, we will slow sales, and it's not healthy for customers. It's not healthy for the goods. And by the way, there's been some commentary, and we were going to have Will speak to this, that there was you'll see some pundits or hypothesis that says, oh, in a tariff environment, if everyone's raising, customers will just keep paying higher price. Josh and I are here to tell you that's BS. That is not how the customer thinks about it. And what's ironic is you hear people say that about businesses, but then if you ask them about themselves and their own action, and you're like, oh, so this item was 100 and now it's 150, and you're just going to keep buying it? And people are like, well, actually, maybe not. So the point is, no, customers are smart and savvy, and they're not just going to keep paying a higher price. And so what happens is we are seeing normal elasticity apply. If you raise price 2%, in durable goods, that drops 10% of sales. If you raise price 10%, that drops 30% of sales. And so while we all must work together to navigate and be smart with our pricing, we also must do our best to mitigate. And so those are a few things we're seeing, but our system has full elasticity awareness, understands the demand pieces. And I really think it's credit, Josh, to your team with Will's boots on the ground to help ingest that data and analyze it. Because there are not many companies in the U.S. that are able to ingest and think about it as broadly as we can, and that's just the fortunate position that Spreetail is one of the biggest and most scaled marketplace accelerators that exist in the U.S. And so we've been able to build that muscle over time.
I would just have to say, I've only been here for a year, and it's been an amazing ride so far, because what Spreetail has the ability to bring from a technology lens, just because of the scale, right, compared to maybe some typical sellers and accelerators out there, we can do some very forward-leaning things, and this is just an example of that. So it's been it's a great testament to Spreetail's investment and some of the capabilities that we have.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think we'll call it for today, and I think that first of all, Josh, it's been great to discuss. Will, thank you for joining as well, and we'll get better on the streaming next time. Apologies on that side. Thank you all. Please continue to send us questions. We're excited to have these chats and keep everyone engaged, informed on all the latest that's happening. And we'll be looking forward to talking some more in the future, especially bringing you some topics on AI on some of the things we're doing and seeing, and how that's just dramatically changing each of our worlds in a good way, I believe, but a big change. So we'll keep working through those things as well. Appreciate you all. We'll see you next time.
Yeah, appreciate having us all.
Yeah, well.
There you go.